Tears of the Kingdom is a strange game. While strange is by no means bad, I did thoroughly enjoy this game. As of writing the script, I've spent several hours playing this game, and I feel like I've barely scratched the surface of everything it has to offer. And games like that are special. However, there were things in this game that shocked me. The most obvious being the lack of regard for any of the lore that happened in the Zelda timeline, but also the game Tears of the Kingdom is a sequel to. And that was odd to me. For being a direct sequel, there was a lot in Tears of the Kingdom that didn't line up with the source material. Some things are just hardly noticeable, but some genuinely make you question how any of these events could have even taken place in the Zelda timeline. In order to explain why this was so surprising, I need to briefly talk about one of the game's developers. If you're not already familiar with him, everyone meet Hidemaru Fujibayashi. He directed the latest Legend of Zelda game to debut on the Wii, Skyward Sword. Along with other things, Fujibayashi was in charge of the game's story. It being the Zelda series' 25th anniversary, the game's story attempted to do what the other games had only done in small chunks up to this point. It attempted to establish a timeline with every mainstream game and set Skyward Sword clearly at the beginning of it. Fujibayashi later worked on Breath of the Wild as a director. Breath of the Wild's story clearly is supposed to take place at the end of the same timeline. We're just not sure when. The goddess statues originally established in Skyward Sword can be found and prayed to from all over the world, as well as characters referencing events that happened in the timeline. However, Tears of the Kingdom largely throws all that out the window. The game completely rewrites the establishment of Hyrule as we know it, and the nature of Zelda's powers as we know it. But while both of those things are video topics of their own right, I want to talk about how the heck Ganondorf can exist. For real though, if he's been alive and under the castle for all this time, then how can he be reincarnated all these other times? This is a thing everyone seems to be scratching their heads at, and it calls into the question if Breath of the Wild can even be considered part of the original timeline. However, I believe there is a way this can all make sense. A way that can make sense of how Ganondorf can be stuck here, but at the same time be present throughout the Zelda timeline. But in order to understand that, we first must understand why these three characters keep reincarnating in the first place. If you enjoy Zelda theories here on YouTube, then odds are you know of the Curse of Demise. A curse that promises that as long as the bloodline of the goddess and the spirit of the hero exists, then Demise can rise once again. Though this should be a solid way to justify why the same three people show up again and again throughout the ages. The more you chip away at this solution, the more cracks start to appear. For one thing, Ganon is always significantly older than Link and Zelda themselves. In some cases, the spirit of the hero and Zelda are alive, but the enemies that they are fighting are not confirmed reincarnations of the Demon King Demise. And in some cases, the spirit of the hero straight up does not exist, and they have to wait 100 years for a new one to take its place. So, what gives? Is the course of time on a linear scale, and so Demise is reincarnated because it's destined that the hero will be born sometime in his life? I don't think so. It's clear throughout the series that the course of time can be altered, but timeline alone should be proof of that. It's clear that anyone with the right tools can change the course of history on the timeline. So instead of thinking that the spirit of Demise reacts to the spirit of the hero, what if the spirit of the hero is a reactant to the reincarnation of Demise? This would explain why Demise is always older than Link and Zelda, and why the spirit of the hero can exist in timelines without Demise in it. The gods can summon him whenever they need him, but he will naturally be summoned whenever Ganondorf is present. But what happens if the person who holds the spirit of the hero is no longer able to fight evil? In A Link Between Worlds, there is a character called Gramps. He's a side character found in Kakariko Village, and his main role is to set up Dark Link battles for the player. However, the final battle he has to offer you is one with himself. He fights with a clone of a Master Sword and a Hylian shield, and it's a commonly accepted theory that Gramps is in fact the hero of legend, the hero that predates the new hero of Hyrule. But if Gramps is another Link, and he exists in the same time as the new hero of Hyrule, then how could the new hero of Hyrule have the spirit of the hero? Is it possible that because of Gramps' age, he wouldn't be able to fight Ganon and go on all these adventures again? So the spirit of the hero left him. The series has shown before that one's spirit can be separated from the person's body. This makes Gramps Link, but he lacks the spirit that allows him to draw the Master Sword. Therefore, the spirit of the hero reacts to the upcoming danger and chooses someone else. But if the spirit of the hero can choose someone else while its host is still alive, then maybe the spirit of Demise can too. Perhaps after Rauru sealed Ganondorf under Hyrule Castle, Demise realized that Ganondorf Ganondorf would no longer be of any use to him, and as such, left him. If the spirit can split from the host, then that could explain why it is possible for so many incarnations to exist while this one specifically is alive. But I understand that the counter-argument is that there is no way the Calamity, the weapon's decay, and the absolute power of Gloom can be the result of some random Gerudo. Secret Stone be damned. And to some extent, I agree. There's no way Ganondorf would be willing to sacrifice his own body, nor would he be able to produce so much gloom in a place that is implied to be the birthplace of demise without the spirit of demise guiding him in some way. But the Calamity could absolutely happen without demise, and this is because of the difference between Gloom and Malice. When Tears of the Kingdom first referred to a substance called Gloom, I thought it was merely a translation error, but I think there is a case to be made that they are two different substances. Let's look at Gloom and Malice's properties. Both contain a similar gooey and smoky effect, depending on the substance's concentration. However, Malice seems to be a lot stickier, often sticking to several places and even creating clots of compacted malice. Gloom doesn't really seem to stick to much outside of the walls and the depths, and while it won't clot like Malice, it can grow roots. Gloom also has the power to create and possess life. Malice only seems to be able to possess objects, and that includes these floating heads, which are kept in motion because of the Malice. While Ganondorf can create puppets from nothing but Gloom itself, the closest thing he can create with his Malice is these eyes that watch you. Malice sticks to the player, making it harder for them to escape, and it consumes hearts at 1 heart per second. However, while Gloom does not stick to you, and it drains your hearts half as quickly, it creates this smoke effect emitting from the player's body. And unlike Malice that makes it easy to recover from, Gloom breaks your hearts, making recovery for the average Hylian incredibly hard. And of course, the most obvious, Gloom is represented by red, while Malice is represented by a pinkish purple. So I think it's safe to say that Malice and Gloom are two different things, and that while Gloom seems to be something exclusive to Ganondorf and Demise, what if I told you that Malice is a tool that is available to everyone? In Skyward Sword, there was a dungeon called the Ancient Cistern. The central themes of this dungeon seem to be about purification, and this is represented by the water, because while the upper half of this dungeon is a paradise, the sewer system underneath are dark and have a deep purple theme. In this area, we find pools of this pinkish purple substance that the community largely agrees to be Malice. This dungeon goes out of its way to show that this Malice can be used by anyone, both in design elements and that Girahim uses Malice to reanimate Koloktos, something that Girahim would have only been able to do by himself because his boss, the Avocado Man, was currently skewered to the bottom of the ceiling grounds. This also seems very similar to how the Blights possessed the Sheikah tech. But if you need more proof that this is indeed Malice, then allow me to introduce you to the Cursed Bokoblin. The Cursed Bokoblin is an enemy that can be found at the bottom of the Ancient Cistern, the same place where Malice is formed. Fide tells us that the Cursed Bokoblin reanimates after death, and is able to reanimate purely through hatreds of the world. And when this enemy dies, it can drop an evil crystal, crystals that are said to be made out of pure crystallized monster Malice, showing that anyone can use Malice. Ganondorf, and by extension Demise, are the only ones whose power uses red as their main magic color. However, they are also prone to using purple. That being said, so does this guy, and this guy. If Malice is available to everyone in the series, then that should include Ganon and Demise. If the tool is available to you, obviously you would use it. However, it seems that they are the only ones who can use Gloom. And that makes sense that if Ganondorf was stuck underground with his normal powers sealed away, he would turn to the only thing he had left. Normally, a person would not be able to produce this amount of Malice in a lifetime, or even 10 lifetimes. But Ganondorf has been stuck underground for about as long as Hyrule has been a kingdom. We know that at least 3 calamities have happened in the past. The second one, they had time to prepare weapons and divine beasts for the fight, likely because they knew of the first calamity. And the third time being the one that takes place in Breath of the Wild. But if he's been there this entire time, then odds are there have been many more. Ganondorf has been using his calamities to slowly whittle down Hyrule's trust and defenses until they are in the same vulnerable state that they are in Tears of the Kingdom. In Ocarina of Time, the world is split up into the adult version and the child version. In the adult version, Ganondorf has also lifted the castle above the ground. This is an action that is clearly and intentionally done by this Ganondorf, not this Ganondorf. And underneath, you are able to see a familiar gooey substance. In the 3D remake of the game, the substance is a pinkish red, but in the original version, it is is the signature deep red of Gloom. This to me proves that Demise's spirit and power is a part of this Ganondorf and all the other ones after him. But at the time of Tears of the Kingdom, Rabu's seal is wearing thin, and Hyrule is in a very vulnerable state. I find it likely that Demise rebound himself to his first Ganondorf, rather than waiting for a new one to be born. So let's organize these events. Shortly after the establishment of Hyrule, Demise's spirit became housed in, as far as we know, the first reincarnation of Ganondorf. Ganondorf used the power of Demise as well as the power of the Secret Stone to enact the first imprisoning war. After Rabu sacrifices himself to seal Ganondorf away, Demise realizes that he has no more use for Ganondorf, so he breaks his spirit away from him. While Demise is busy reincarnating into other versions of Ganondorf, this Ganondorf's hate turns into Malice, and over the next thousands of years, the Malice grows big enough to unleash calamities onto Hyrule. Up to present-day Hyrule, where Rabu's seal has almost completely come undone, and the kingdom is at its most vulnerable. Demise's spirit takes possession of its oldest host, Ganondorf, to produce the gloom that decays the weapons and makes people sick, so they can successfully lure the spirit of the hero and the bloodline of the goddess to them, making way for Ganondorf of the Wild to exist all throughout the timeline. I'm aware this theory may seem a little far-fetched, but I think it's something worth thinking about regardless. But what do you think? Does this Ganondorf hold the spirit of Demise? Or is it simply a Gerudo who has a lot of anger issues and needs to go to therapy? Or should Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild just be considered a different part of the universe and not associated with this timeline? Let me know in the comments down below. As always, I'm Majora, and I'll see you guys later.